In today's video, we're taking a look at the latest trade talk around the NHL, focusing on teams like the Montreal Canadiens, Ottawa Senators, and the Edmonton Oilers. Are the Oilers more likely to buy out Jack Campbell rather than trade him? We'll discuss that possibility. Plus, we're going to take a look at some of the candidates that could be the long-term permanent new head coach for the Senators after taking over for Jacques Martin possibly next season. All kinds of other news around the NHL, including some injury updates, a debut for Miroshnishenko, Sam Girard's back with the Avalanche, and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a lot of NHL news to cover today. We'll get into some trade talk here in just a few minutes' time. Of course, no NHL news from the waiver wire today because the roster freeze is now in effect until midnight on December the 28th, so there won't be any demotions or any trades, at least until after that period of time over the holiday season. It was a big night last night. We saw the debut of a 19-year-old former first-rounder of the Capitals, Ivan Miroshnishenko. Of course, it was about a year ago, back in February 2022, I guess more than a year ago, about a year and a half ago, he was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. So obviously he went through quite a battle, obviously lost a lot of development time, but he's been playing very well in the American Hockey League, certainly deserved the call-up, and has had himself a pretty solid game last night. Didn't score his first goal, but it was looking pretty good. Certainly has a good shot, and certainly did not look out of place by any means. So the Capitals have had a lot of their young players up in their lineup. He was called up along with Hendrix Lapierre as well. Connor McMichael's been playing well. So kind of starting to see more of a mix of the new age Capitals with some of the older veterans as well. They've had a lot of injuries this year, and certainly these young guys have been getting more of an opportunity, which is nice to see. Now, staying with the Capitals and Ovechkin, he's still stuck on 5 goals for the season. He's now gone 14 games without a goal. By far the biggest drought of his career. Certainly a lot of people having a big debate. Is Ovi going to even hit 30 goals this year? Will it be less than that? At this rate, he's on pace for less than 20. Over 30 games in and only scoring 5 goals. Not to say that he's not capable of going on a heater. We've seen Ovechkin before go, back-to-back hat tricks or score 10 goals in 4 or 5 games. It's not unusual, so you never know. Maybe he'll catch fire, but just watching him, he does look different out there. On the power play, he's not even moving around. He's kind of planting his feet in his office in the left face-off circle, and if the puck comes, he's shooting it, and if it doesn't, he just doesn't kind of do anything. So, yeah, it's curious to see if Father Time has caught up to him. We know Father Time is undefeated. Is he starting to win that battle with Ovechkin? Time will tell, because I don't know if this is a slump or this is just kind of the new version of Ovi as he's aged. It's hard to say because we haven't really seen a decline in his play before this. So curious to see if he'll get himself out of this or not. Another good sight today as well. Samuel Girard was on the ice with the Colorado Avalanche, which was a welcome addition to their club. He's missed about 15 games after leaving the team to go into the NHLPA's Player Assistance Program. He was pretty open about the fact that he needed to get some help to deal with mental health issues, including depression and anxiety. So nice to see him back. Hopefully things went well for him. He's made good progress, and I'm not sure how quickly he'll get in the lineup. I'm going to assume the Avalanche are going to probably want him to at least hit a few practices and a few skates and kind of get himself ready here before he gets back in the lineup. But yeah, nice to see him back, and I hope everything went well for him during his time in the program. The Ducks tonight are expected to get back Jamie Drysdale and Mason McTavish, so that'll be a big boost to their lineup. And the Coyotes are expected to get back arguably their top defenseman this year, Sean Durzi. He returns tonight as well. And the Ottawa Senators have reassigned defenseman Jacob Larson back down to the Belleville Senators in the American Hockey League. So obviously, like I said, the players could be sent back up until the 23rd, but there are no other trades or waiver activity for the NHL until the 28th. Now, speaking of Ottawa, lots of talk about the future of the head coaching position in Canada's capital. Obviously, Jacques Martin has been there just a few days, has 1 game behind the bench, which was looking really good from the start. Looked like they're going to pick up a win over the Arizona Coyotes. Unfortunately, they had a combination of bad luck and a little bit of poor play and a bit of a collapse in the third period to lose that game at Mullet Arena to the Coyotes. They got one more game on this long, tough road trip, which so far remains winless as they go into the Mile High Stadium tonight to battle the Colorado Avalanche. It's not going to get any easier against the high-powered force of nature, Nathan MacKinnon, Cale Makar, and company there in Colorado. I'm sure they're going to be happy to get out of this trip and home. It's been tough. We saw a coaching change. We've seen the losses mount up. And like I said, Arizona, no offense to them, is probably one of their easiest, if not easiest opponent. And they're not like they used to be. Like, Arizona is no pushover, but they played well, and they chased Connor Ingram out of the net, who was, been one of the better goalies as of late, been on a bit of a hot streak, and then they fell apart. So, can Jacques Martin make some changes? Well, we've seen that happen at their practice today. They were certainly making some adjustments to their systems. They're obviously already, after one game, changing the way that DJ Smith had them playing. So hopefully they'll get going. But the belief is that at 71 years old, Jacques Martin is really only there to kind of take over, most likely the rest of the season, to kind of teach these guys more about accountability, to teach them more about being 200-foot players, teach them the right way, to work out some of the bad habits, and to work on the little details of their game to make these guys better. And then most likely they'll have a new permanent head coach come in, take over, most likely for next season. At least that's the anticipated, best guess anybody around the team has right now. I would suspect there's a good chance Jacques Martin will still be involved with the team. And you know what? Depending on how interviews go with some of these candidates or whatnot, and if he does a really good job and wants to stay, maybe he stays. But right now, the belief is he's just a temporary solution to kind of help work out some of the things that are not going well, and then hand it over to a new coach when the time is right. So some of the top candidates, according to Frank Saravalli of dailyfaceoff.com, include John Gruden. Now, John Gruden's not a surprise name. We've talked about him before. He has history with Enlauer and Staios and Hamilton. They obviously won a championship there together. He's got 6 years of assistant coach experience in the NHL, and he's currently a head coach at the American Hockey League in the Leafs organization for the Toronto Marlies. So, good candidate, sure. My concern there is that they've had DJ Smith was a first-time head coach. I know Gruden's a little bit older, and he does have past connections to the Sens organization when he was a player as well. So there is that. I really convinced they need somebody with experience. No offense to Gruden. Maybe he'd be good. Maybe I just don't know enough about the guy as a coach, but I just think they need somebody with some experience here. And we'll see how things go under Martin. And Frank's article, he also lists former Oilers bench boss Jay Woodcroft as a potential candidate here as well. Of course, had a lot of success in Edmonton. Ultimately had a bit of a losing streak this year and lost his job. But overall, he's been quite good. He also lists Claude Julien, of course, an Ottawa native, somebody with tons of experience in the NHL, including a Stanley Cup, known for really solid defensive play as well. Claude Julien's been out of the league for a while, but he's been around working in different capacities and consulting and different things. So wouldn't be shocked to see him involved. And like I said before, I think Julien is probably at the very least familiar with the ownership, at least to some extent, like Jacques Martin is. And then another interesting name, which makes a lot of sense, but again, kind of goes against what I said for a first-time coach, but Chris Kelly, current assistant coach with the Boston Bruins, who was a longtime Senators player. He did work in Ottawa a little bit after retirement as well, before going to Boston. Of course, Kelly only played with the Sens and the Bruins during one of their rebuilding times, when Chris Kelly was traded along with guys like Mike Fisher and, a few other guys there back in the late 2000s. He ended up in Boston and was part of the 2011 Cup championship team. Went on to play a little longer with the Bruins. After retirement, he came back, worked in Ottawa, not for long. Again, like a lot of the former alumni, was kind of ran into issues with, I think, just in the environment and the Eugene Melnyk had created there to work for. That's part of the reason why Alfie came, then he left. Now he's back again, and he's been an assistant coach with Boston now for some time. So he's got a lot of experience. And really, Chris Kelly is also somebody who plays what a lot of people deem the right way. 200-foot player, a guy who was instrumental during that Alfredson knows well from when he played. Obviously taught Alfredson a lot too about playing, both sides of the puck. So another interesting candidate there. But again, a lot of these guys wouldn't even. Woodcroft and Julien could be available now, which kind of leads me to think that maybe they're not people that they are overly keen on. So we'll see what happens, but Those are the main candidates names that are out there as far as long-term solutions for the Sens behind the bench. I wouldn't completely rule out Daniel Alfredsson either, to be completely honest. We'll see how things go. Obviously, he's an assistant coach for right now. In Edmonton, behind the goaltending situation here, of course, has been a hot topic for the Oilers. Now, according to Bob Stauffer and Elliot Friedman on their latest conversation on Stauffer's program, they're kind of talking about the fact that they believe that Stuart Skinner and Calvin Pickard and that 8-game winning streak is going to bond to Oilers some time to deal with this, and that they may hold off on finding a goaltender to come into the organization perhaps until the All-Star break, which I know concerns some fans. After that long winning streak, they're now on a 3-game losing skid. And is it all goaltending's fault? No, but certainly part of it yet again. And Jack Campbell is in a situation where they keep kind of waiting for him to find his game in the American Hockey League, and to be honest, I don't think they should hold their breath. I mean, like I said, when he first went down, he had a bad run. The first 3 games were bad. Then he went on a good streak for 3 or 4 games, and then he's been on a bad streak yet again. Like, it's at a point now where his American Hockey League head coach even spoke about it publicly, talking about the struggles and talking about the fact that he's not going to be given like every start. Like, he's kind of lost the job there. Like, he's going to have to sit, and they're going to play Olivier Rodrigue more because that's really better for his development, better for the team because they need to give themselves a better chance to win. There's even some talk that if, depending on how things go with Calvin Pickard, the Oilers might even give Rodrigue a brief look at the NHL level too. I mean, he's been in the system long enough that I guess at some point you got to give him a chance and see if he's going to kind of make or break and be able to run with an NHL opportunity. So again, Jack Campbell does not appear to be getting a call up anytime soon. The Oilers can't hold their breath waiting. And there's some talk too, about the fact that if they're going to wait to do a goalie trade, it's tough. Like, they should have probably made a trade earlier in the season, to be honest, because now you look around, there's not that many teams anymore that have an extra goalie. Look at Detroit. They were one of the teams that had an extra guy, and now they got 2 out of the 3 goalies hurt. Calgary's sitting back, probably holding most of the cards here with Dan Vladar. They also have Chris Tanev. I mean, did we see an Alberta interprovincial trade here, sending Vladar and Tanev to Edmonton? I mean, I don't know for sure, but I mean, that would be one of the teams they could talk to, or it could be like Montreal about Jake Allen. There's not a lot of options out there. A lot of teams have run into issues, right? So, and there's enough teams looking that the price tag's not going to go down. It's going to be more challenging. So, obviously, the Oilers are going to have to look at that. But the other big question here is it make more sense to buy Campbell out rather than try to trade him? I mean, the word is that Philip Broberg's available for trade and could be used as a sweetener to entice a team to take Campbell off their hands. But Jack Campbell, after this year, is going to have 3 years left on his contract at $5 million per season. And if you look at how the buyout works, courtesy of CapFriendly.com, in the next 3 years, they would save $3.9 million, $2.7 million, and $2.4 million. So next year, they would only be on the hook for 1.1. They'd have an extra 3.9 million in space, then 2.7, 2.4. Obviously, in year 3, it'd be pretty much a 50-50 split almost. But then it adds on an extra 3 years because that's twice the period of time that's left at 1.5 million per season. But of course, by the time you get 5-6 years down the road, you expect the salary cap to be much, much higher. And really, they got to look at winning now. And, is that a little bit of cap space in 3, 4, 5, and 6 years down the road? What's more valuable, that or making a trade and paying somebody to take Campbell for the full hit now? I don't know. I honestly think a buyout might be easier. So I wouldn't be completely shocked here if Campbell spends the rest of the year in the minors unless something drastically turns around and then they buy him out in the offseason. The only problem with that is that it's going to give them a lot less flexibility to work with to acquire another goaltender. So we'll have to see how the Oilers handle this, but it's not a foregone conclusion that Campbell is moved in with a sweetener. So we'll see. Of course, in Ottawa, things have not gone well, as we've talked about. We saw the coaching change. Now there's been some talk, and there was already some talk as well, that to get Shane Pinto in the lineup, that they might have had to make a move anyways, but they've had enough injuries this year that they've been able to use long-term injury relief, that they haven't really been able to have to make that move as of yet, and that might continue. It's hard to say, but regardless of where things are at with that and squeezing Pinto into the lineup, barring some kind of drastic turn turnaround, unless they go on a run here, getting into the playoffs is going to be extremely difficult. It's not impossible at this point because they do have a lot of games in hand compared to a lot of teams. But the next 5-10 games, if this doesn't drastically turn around, they need a run like the Oilers had of like 7-8 wins in a row. If they can't put that together in like the next 10-12 games, it's pretty much over. And later in the season, we're probably going to see some moves regarding some of their pending unrestricted free agents. So you're looking at Vladimir Tarasenko and Dominik Kubalik primarily. You have to think that both are on expiring deals. Tarasenko's making $5 million. Kubalik's only making $2.5 million. They could be helpful players to other teams. There's really no word at this point because it's still too early if either have interest to return to the Senators. I would think that the Sens might have interest in re-signing Tarasenko. He has played pretty well for them and been pretty productive. But, they have to analyze the market, look at what options they might have to replace him in the lineup for next year. And just because they trade him, it doesn't mean they couldn't consider talking to him about re-signing in the offseason too. It's difficult to say, right? And we don't know where his head's at with what he wants to do. I know in the offseason when he signed, a lot of people said, oh yeah, he'll do the 1 year, then he'll go. Well, it depends on what else is out there, right? Hard to say. But would there be interest in a deadline pickup? I think there would be. He's played well enough to generate a lot of interest, I'm sure. But those Sens players, it makes sense for them to recoup some assets here, especially if they can get some extra prospects or picks. I mean, a lot of at one point, they had an extremely deep prospect pool, and most of those good prospects, not all, but most, have already graduated to the NHL. Now they have a good group of young core players instead of a prospect pool, and there's not a lot of depth left in that pool. So if they can replenish a bit, get some extra picks or prospects with some of those players that might not fit to their future plans, it might be in the best interest. I would think before you see any kind of other drastic moves to shake up the core or anything, I think that's probably not going to happen just yet. I would think that it would be probably into the offseason, if depending on how the rest of the season goes. This is going to give Andlauer and Staios a much more, big window here to kind of to kind of reevaluate the roster. And, when you have multiple coaches coming in, different styles, and then you give you a real good idea of who fits and who doesn't and what the team really needs to take a step for next year. So we'll see what happens, but those pending UFAs could very well find themselves moves by the deadline. And in Montreal, we've talked about a lot of different Habs players that are generating interest on the market. I know currently the Habs are kind of in the mix for a wild card spot. To be completely honest, I don't see it happening, but that's just me. I think playoffs are not realistic for this team, and they will end up being sellers at the deadline. Even if they are hanging around in the mix, I don't see Ken Hughes and Jeff Gorton being, numb to the fact that they're not a contending team, so it doesn't make sense to hang on to players when they can get assets for the future. They're still building for the future, regardless of what anybody wants to say about this team. There's lots of veterans that doesn't make sense to keep around any longer than they need to. But another name that's surfaced, according to NHL insiders, that they are not pushing to trade, but they're willing to trade if the right offer comes along, is bottom six center Jake Evans. Jake Evans has occasionally played up in the lineup, but for the most part, he's a bottom six center, can play, a two-way game, can be, more of a checking type role. Obviously, he's not signed to a long-term deal. He's got this year and one more at $1.7 million. It could be a great addition for somebody who wants to, shore up their bottom six. And like I said, he comes with an extra year of term. So it's somebody that they can have for multiple playoff runs. No guarantee that Evans is moved. I mean, when you're looking at some of the other veterans that have been popping up in the rumor mill, whether it be David Savard, or you're looking at obviously like Armia, maybe Dvorak, Monahan, those guys are all more likely to go if the deals are there. I think that the interest from the Habs side to move them is higher. I mean, Monahan, I don't know. I mean, there's times when the rumor will suggest that they want to keep him, and there's other times that they probably want to sell high since he's had a better season. So we'll see where things go. I mean, they don't really want a lot of their younger pieces that they see as being a part of the future, like obviously Suzuki, Caulfield, Slavkovsky, some of their younger D. Those are players they don't want to move, but there's still lots of veterans around that are expendable. Jake Evans is at an age where he's not really on the young side anymore, but he's certainly not an old veteran either. He's kind of, getting into the later 20s where it's, does he fit for the long-term future, because obviously some of these guys that are, 20, 21 years old, by the time this team gets to contending point, he's going to be much older and, very well likely moved on. So we'll see what happens, but he is another player that the Habs are willing to listen on. The goaltending, though, is probably the most interesting in Montreal, with Jake Allen getting a lot of attention from different clubs, and we'll see where that goes. But I think that there's a good chance early in the new year that teams are going to end up making an offer Montreal likely wants to move forward with, but we'll see where that goes. Let me know your thoughts on all today's news and rumors down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.